it was funny because what started off is me being angry at my doctor has is fueled me so badly to the point that I did this, and it was interesting because a month or two after that happening, I wasn't mad anymore. I was grateful. I was very thankful to the doctor, and it was one of those things where I was like, you know what, I need to thank her.
Russell, how did you find carnivore?
Well, it's been a journey. For me, it started November 3rd of 2023. Um, is when I officially started carnivore. November 1st, I had a doctor's meeting, and I I went in there and you did the normal mumbo jumbo. You weigh in and you see how much you weigh, and I weighed 315 pounds when I went in there, and at the time I had sleep apnea. I was on a CPAP machine. I was on uh, blood pressure medication. I was on uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, I was on metformin for diabetes, and so I had a meeting with her, and she did the normal. What's going on with you? What's new? How you feeling and whatnot. Your weight. You should lose some weight, and I told her, basically, I need to change my diet. I need to do things a little bit better and start to lose weight. And she was just very dismissive. I just felt like I was a number to her. So lo and behold, I left and it didn't think nothing of it. It wasn't until I got the after summary report and I read through it that she had explained in there that um, I was overweight and that she suggested that I do a whole bunch of things that she never said anything to me about doing. And she was recommending medication, for me that she never talked to me about. So that whole dismissive part came in. And long story short, it upset me. It made me very angry. You can use other choice words there. I won't use them. But at that point, I'd already been studying for a week or two, just kind of seeing, podcasts and YouTube reminders and stuff of other people that have done carnivore. And so at that point, from the 1st November to the 3rd, when I started, I binged watched everything I could. We're talking like Dr. Let's see, Ken Baker and um, Dr. Barry, and I did like Carry on Homestead How. And I just went down the rabbit hole, and everyone knows the YouTube rabbit hole, 12, 13, 14 hours, you don't even know it. And that's exactly what happened. And I just did one of those, screw it, let's just do this. Let's see what's going to happen. And I didn't follow the conventional wisdom that everyone does, where they say, start eliminating the things out of your diet one by one and get yourself to that. I just cold turkeyed everything. I just no caffeine, no anything, went straight water, straight meat. I lived by the philosophy of the beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And I would supplement, and basically my side dishes would be um, chicken or shrimp, or I would do, let's see here, red sea salmon and herring, stuff like that. I wanted to make sure I got my iodine in there and whatnot. Change the type of salt that I ate. I didn't do any more iodide salt. No, just standard table salt. I went to like pink Himalayan there for a long time, and then I switched over to Redmond salt there for a while, and I prefer the Redmond salt a lot better, and I've still been doing that. And here we are still to this day. Uh, the process it's been interesting. So I had to get a. It was funny because what started off is me being angry at my doctor has is fueled me so badly to the point that I did this, and it was interesting because a month or two after that happening, I wasn't mad anymore. I was grateful. I was very thankful to the doctor, and it was one of those things where I was like, you know what, I need to thank her. And what started off is I'm going to show her, because we set another appointment a few months out. I'm going to show her that like I'm not just one of those turned into. I was thankful. I was glad that it happened, and it happened in a weird way, in a weird circumstance, but it happened, for the good. So when I went into my next doctor's appointment, and I was gonna, just tell her that I didn't appreciate what you did, but thank you anyway. And I told the nurse what had happened, and I never actually got to meet with the doctor again. The manager of the doctor's office came in there and talked to me about it. And she said, "I'm so sorry that happened," and they put me in touch with another doctor in there. So I have a new doctor, and it's the same doctor ever since. And I got to meet with him a week later, and he's given me a little bit of resistance with all of this. He's said, please eat a vegetable, and I'm like, no, no, I don't want to eat a vegetable. I'm not going to. So just to kind of prove me wrong, I guess he would, for like the last year, he's ordered a barrage of blood tests. So I've had 4 blood tests so far. All of them have come, and as my journey has progressed, so my first blood test was about 5 months into it, and then it was every 2 3 months after that, and my blood all my levels have improved just going through that. Like I went being diabetic, I was like 7.4 A1Cs, which is diabetic, and by the time my first blood test came around, I was a 5 point, I think it was 5.6, and anything below, yeah, improved just that quickly.
The question for your doctor would have been, which vegetable do you have in mind that'll make everything better?
Right? I it, I didn't think of it that way at the time. I just said no. I have no interest in doing vegetables. I haven't done vegetables ever since. I mean, I don't even do anything plant based. I know some people on this will do spices and stuff like that, even right down to pepper. I don't even do that. Like, I only season with salt and butter and real butter. So, but yeah, but he's that's about the only resistance he gave me once or twice, and he thinks that I'm doing fantastic. He loves the fact that finally, after about the last blood test that I had, he goes, "I think we can start doing your blood tests once a year if that's okay with you." And I said, "That's fantastic. We can go ahead and do that."
Nice. So your how's your how's your weight? How's the sleep apnea and those kind of things?
Well, I no longer have sleep apnea. I no longer require a CPAP machine, which I was on. Um, I no longer require medication for diabetes. I don't require metformin anymore. My A1Cs are completely normal. If I prick my finger, my blood sugars stay right in, 80, 75. 80 is like the highest that I spike. Um, I no longer require, like I said, blood pressure medication. In fact, my snoring has almost. It depends on how I sleep, um, but my snoring is almost non-existent as well. Where I used to snore all the time, everyone would tell me if I fell asleep on the couch. I don't nap as much. I have more energy. Um, like I said, when I started at the doctor, I was 315 pounds. By about halfway through, and it just slowly progressed. When I was on this podcast before, I think I was hovering in around 360 to 363 pounds, down from 315. I am now hovering around, or sorry, I was 260, yeah, 260, 265. Now I'm hovering down around 220. I stay between 215 and 220. I have now officially, I'm down 3 pant. I was a size 40 pant size. I'm down into a 34 pant size, which is really close to where I was in high school.
Wow. And how tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
Wow. So,
Yeah,
like,
I was
basically
almost,
100 pounds weight loss. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yep, I was almost as big around as I was, tall as it was the joke that I'd always make. I was portly. Not anymore. I was in a 2X to 3X shirt depending upon who made it. Now I'm in a large. So
Wow. So, like, people around you must be noticing.
yeah, my mom, I got her. The cool thing, my mom's kind of a weird one with this one. My mom lives a few states away, but we talked shortly after because she was visiting here from Missouri, from southern Missouri, and She went with me to the doctor's office, so she saw my rage that day, and she knew about what I was doing. She ended up going home back to Missouri the next day, and probably within a week or two after that, she started carnivore as well. So she's been on a carnivore journey almost as within a week as long as I have, and she's noticed improvements in not only herself but myself. And like her eyebrows were kind of gone, and they started to grow back, and her eyes didn't get any worse when she was going to the optometrist to her yearly checkup. And my mom's in her 70s, so her health is, her colors come back. She's not flushed anymore, she's not as pale. She is more active. Her arthritis started to go away in her wrists. Other people around me here, like my cousin who lives nearby, he's still of the kind of the old school way. He eats his stuff, and he does things in moderation. And it's like it's okay to cheat every now and then. And I'm like, no, it's not designed to be in my body. I don't need it. um, my adopted brother and his wife, who I live near the property with, they're carnivore as well. She's probably lost somewhere close to 60 or 80 pounds in the journey she's done over the last year. He kind of cheated a little bit. That's okay. I mean, it's a tough diet to do if you're used to doing other things, and we got him back on track, and he's starting to improve his health and his weight. So it's yeah, a lot of people around me are I've gotten involved in doing this, and I tell them it's do the research. Don't just take my word for it. Get on YouTube, look at literature, read medical journals. A lot of the stigma of eating meat all the time, and causes high cholesterol, and saturated fat is bad for you. All that stuff is being debunked, and it's being shown in medical journals with some of the new studies coming out going, oh yeah, hey, we were wrong. It's not that bad for you.
Yeah, so speaking of that, have you not given your doctor a heart attack with your high cholesterol?
No, in fact, my cholesterol isn't really that high. Even though, like I said, my main meat every night when I eat is steak, or some sort of red meat. So I'll do ground up, and I usually do the higher fat content. But what I've noticed, just being full carnivore, even with eating leaner meats on the side, chickens and trouts, and I'm an avid deer hunter, so I eat a lot of deer meat. This last time we ended up with me, my cousin and his wife's brother, we ended up pulling like 5 or 6 deer out of the um out of the woods, and ended up with probably like 300 pounds of deer meat. So we split all the deer meat up, and so I eat really healthy meat and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where my cholesterol isn't really that high. It's normal. And even the doctor's kind of like, I don't understand it. Like, well, when you eat healthy and you don't eat the stuff that you're not supposed to be putting into your system, then that's good.
And the good thing about this is, the more each doctor sees people who are doing really well on this way of eating, the more kind of makes them feel like whether or not they go ahead and start recommending it or not is a different story. But like at least they've got another data point. So they've got patients where they've got to the end of the road. They can't think of what they can do to help them. They
Yeah,
can maybe think, well, you could try changing your diet.
yeah. Well,
Mm.
and the cool thing is my new doctor. He's my old doctor was a probably a woman just a little bit older than I am. My new doctor, I think he's just a little bit younger than I am, male doctor, but he's really cool, and he's very open minded. And the one thing that I like about him, which is why I stuck with him, like I said, he's given me very little resistance. Like, would you eat a vegetable? No, and that's about all he gives me. The cool thing about him is he's very, not only is he open minded, but he one of the spiels that he gave to me early on when I first met him is he's like, it's not my job to tell you what to do and what you can't do. My job is to inform you of everything that's going on and what I see happening, regardless what I believe right, wrong, or indifferent, and it's so that you can make the informed decision about what you want to do with your life. And I like that. That resonated with me. That's one of those. It's like, he's not trying to push a hidden agenda on me, this, that, and the other. I know he believes that vegetables are healthy and whatnot. And I mean, even even eating vegetables, as long as it's whole food and you're eating with nice meat, you're not mixing it with sugar and carbs and lots of starches. I mean, is it a healthier diet than eating the sad diet, the standard American diet? So I mean, it is a step above it. I just decided to take it to the ultimate, you know, healthiest diet and go back to the way that our ancestors ate when we hunt and we ate buffaloes and woolly mammoths and whatnot. And but but he's very optimistic about that. He's been very nice about it. He's never approached me in a negative way, and just the fact that he's there to inform me and help me make better decisions, that resonated with me, and that's important. I think more doctors should be that way. More doctors should be more open to seeing what's going on, and it's the same thing with him. Like it was a kind of an ongoing joke with all the blood tests we were doing. He's like, he's trying to prove me wrong, and what he ended up doing was not proving me wrong, and he was open to it. He's like, you know what, like, everything's great. I think we just need to go to once a year. And I maybe not made him a true believer, but I definitely got him to think twice about going, all right, maybe I should think about this.
Yeah, and that is what you want, right? Because you just want someone who's going to report the reality to you and say, "Well, this is what I think, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it has to be," and, things are looking good at this stage.
Yeah, things are looking good. I have uh, um, I have no intent on going back to eating any form of sad diet. Like, people, my adopted brother's wife, she's more dirty carnivore and a little bit of keto at times, but she tries to keep it very whole foods. She's still she's does eat fairly clean. I don't even want to do that. I like what I have done so well that, even to the point, like I said, I don't even eat pepper. I don't eat plant based anything, and I'm gonna keep it that way. For the most part, 98% of the time, that's how I am. The only time that I'll even slightly skip off of it a little bit, and I'll allow it to go slightly more keto, is on major holidays. Like, we had Easter. This Easter just passed, and we had a cookout, and we had the hot irons and the flat irons going, and we cooked special all beef. Like, we had to go hunting and drive an hour away just to get special all beef hot dogs, because I won't eat the extra preservatives and additives, and I just wouldn't do it. We got special slider hamburger meat, so that with the tiny ones that were pre-made, but they were all beef and the proper fat, lean fat ratio. And one of family members who had moved from Pennsylvania had come over, and they made a dip, but it was cheese, but it was real cheese and everything like that. But it had a little bit of buffalo sauce in it, but without the added sugar. So, and I allowed myself to try a little bit of that, and that's about as far as I go. And on those occasions, I allow myself. We have these little vodka seltzers and stuff that only have the natural flavors in it, no extra carbs and sugars or anything like that. So I'll allow myself to have those, but I try to stay as strict as I possibly can. And I have absolutely no intention on going back to anything else. I love the way that this has made me feel. I love the fact that I'm in clothes that fit right and they're not huge. I love the fact that when I jump off the couch, and and my kids, because they're getting to be older now. I have two daughters, and one was about to be 18. And when they say, "Hey, Dad, let's go outside and run, throw a ball, do something," I don't feel winded by the time I hit the front door. I feel fantastic now. I'm not, I'm 100 pounds lighter. I have more energy. Life is better this way.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than when your kids are like, "Let's go and play," and you're like, "Oh, no, don't ask me to do things. Oh, no,
Yeah.
just let me stay on the couch."
And that was part of the problem. That's what um, sparked kind of like my research really early on. Like, I know I have to do something, I don't know what it is. And it was just this cascading effect, and I did, and it's like I tell everyone when going carnivore. I think one of the most important messages that I tell everyone is that everyone's like, oh my god, they see my weight loss. That's the first thing they see. They see what I look like a year and a half ago, and they see what I look like now, like, oh my god, what did you do? And I'm like, well, I'm like, I know that's really easy to get caught up in. I said, but I did it for my health, not my weight. Weight is should always be secondary. I said, if you're just doing this to lose weight, you'll fail. It's very hard to just. It's not a big enough driving force for me. It was I couldn't get off the couch to play with my children, and it was causing me medical problems. And the thought just kept going through my head. I want to walk my kids down the aisle when they go to get married, and will I be able to do that on the course of action? On the course that I was on. And I truly feel like I wouldn't have been able to, and that just saddened my heart. So I something had to be done about it.
So, just on that point, like a lot of people more and more are type 2 diabetic, and they have the high A1C, and it goes on for a long time, and then you start to get to the point where there's things like amputations and all that kind of thing. When you kind of step back from it, when you've been somewhat close to it, and then you step back and you can kind of go, I can't believe I was heading in that direction. But do you think for most people, they're just not, like, it doesn't even cross their mind, It's just like it's almost like it's inevitability. I'm gonna get sick at some point, or I'm gonna be incapacitated at some point.
Yeah, people get, and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, people get complacent. I mean, we get comfortable in what we're doing. Things taste good. Eh, one of the mottos that I try to live by, and I tell people as well, it's like everyone, lives to eat when we should be eating to live. We're living the wrong way around. I only eat one meal a day. And I eat enough meat and everything, and it sustains me for 24 hours. If I have to snack, and if I have to snack, I'll eat some bacon or I'll eat some eggs. I'll scramble up some eggs. I keep it as pure as I possibly can. And yeah, I mean, people get complacent, and when they do that, and they get comfortable in their lives, and people aren't willing to give up. Man, I really like that cake or that snack or that chocolate bar or the pop that I want to drink, and they're not willing to give up the carbs and the sugar because it's an addiction. And I had to admit that for myself as well. I was the same way. I'm just like I can't give it. I was a cake fiend. I loved cake. um, Early on in my life, my mom would cook me scalloped potatoes, so I was a starch fiend for a long time. So I'd always eat, with ketchup on it. So now I have starch, and I'm adding sugar on top of it, and yeah, it tasted amazing, and it was hard for me to give that up. And it's when you start to have those experiences where, like, what the doctor did, and not being able to get off the couch to go play with the kids without being winded. And here I am for the couple of years before this happened. I can't sleep without a mask on my face, with the risk that I could stop breathing in the middle of the night, and I just don't wake up tomorrow. And when people really start to realize that it has to get better. Of another podcaster, I won't name his name or anything like that, but said this, and said this a lot. Until it gets bad enough, people will not change. So it has to get bad enough to jar the people out of their comfort zone for them to go, and to, like you said, take that step back, look at it from outside the bubble, and go, oh, I should do something about this. And the only way to do it, you have to break the chain. That's what I tell people. You have to break the chain. If you never break a link in that same chain that you've been going down in life, nothing changes.
Even for myself, it was the point that other people were noticing, and I was like, "Okay, well, I need to do something about this, because if people are noticing this now, it's getting really bad, and it's not gonna get better unless I take some action."
Yeah, and it's the same. It was the same way with me. You know, even my kids were like, "Dad, come play with me," and I couldn't go play with them, and it's like, "Dad, you never play with us." And then I'd fall asleep. I'd always fall asleep. Like I have a big movie theater set up in my living room, and we would sit down and all watch a movie and try to have family night. Then I would fall asleep, and I would just be snoring like a log next over here. I couldn't get 15 minutes into the movie, and that happened often. Um, to the it's bad enough when I start noticing without anyone else telling me, like I'm having trouble breathing at night, having to use a machine. And yeah, you're right. It's one thing. It's cool if you can catch it on your own. I mean, it was kind of both for me. I kind of caught it on my own while other people were telling me this. But it does. But at the same time, when other people do notice those type of things and tell you, it kind of makes it you feel bad. You feel like, oh man, what have I been doing to myself? Like what? Why have I done this? And you have to. Yeah.
It's really strange because it's almost like once those people start mentioning things, you kinda look in the mirror and you go, "So, it wasn't just me noticing this." And of course it
Yeah.
wasn't, but it's like
Yeah.
you almost fool yourself, right?
Yeah. Well, again, and well, that goes into a whole nother conversation about like us as human beings. We like to justify things, and I'm guilty. We're all guilty of it. We're like, oh, just one more, it'll be okay, or we'll put it off till tomorrow. That's a tomorrow problem, or like, oh, it's okay, and the problem is like again where that comfortability and that complacency comes in. We lose the ability to go enough's enough. Like, and only when it gets bad enough do we finally make that choice to go, all right, we got to change. And it's unfortunate that it's that way, and I try, that's what I say, I try to get people to realize, like, the biggest thing for me, especially now that I've lost all the weight, I don't have the medical issues anymore, and I look at other people when I go to the grocery store, and I can't help but notice what's in their cart. I've noticed that. I try not to. I'm not that type of person, but you notice what's in their cart, and you look at them, and they're breathing hard, and they're doing this, that, and the other. And I like to help people, so it's real hard for me to walk by these people when I could just look at them and go, there's a cure to all of this. We could fix this, and it's not
Mm.
that hard.
And the worst thing is, it's not like most people are not actively trying to do what they're doing. Most people, they think they're doing the right thing. And that's what makes it harder for us to kind of walk past it and not say something because you feel like if they just knew,
Hmm.
but everyone's thinking, if I just keep eating this no cholesterol cereal, I'll one of these days it's going to be okay.
Yeah, the heart healthy, low fat stuff. Yeah, it yeah. It's difficult. It certainly is. Uh,
Yeah. So, if a friend said to you, "Look, Russell, please tell me what do I need to do to get started with carnivore?" How would you recommend they start to maximize their chances of success?
uh, well, that's kind of a two-parter there. First thing I tell them, well, it's more like a three-parter actually. First thing I ask them is how serious are you wanting to do this? Because this is going to be a long conversation, and before we're going to spend this amount of time in doing it, I need to know that you're serious in wanting to do this. That's question number one. That's the first part. The second part, I will tell them what I did on my journey, and then I will reassure them that you do not have to do that. um, Mine was cold turkey, and I had to deal with the keto flu a little bit at the beginning, and cutting everything off, and it takes a serious amount of willpower, and mine was anger at the time from the doctor, so I had a lot of driving force there. I said, but that's not sustainable unless you have some real sheer willpower behind it. And even it was even hard for me. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm super carnivore man or something. I'm not. It was tough, and it was truly tough. Then the third part that I'll tell them, and I do tell people because they ask me about it, who've seen me. is, one step at a time. Like, assess what you're looking at in your cabinets, in your refrigerator, how you're what you're doing on your diet, and start cutting out things that you don't need. Things like excessive carbs. Maybe not cut all of them out at first, but start cutting out the excessive carbs so that your body starts getting used to of having less carb intake. And the goal there would be to remove them completely. Second thing is remove sugar from your diet, but you don't have to do carbs and sugar at the same time. Like I said, this is not a cold turkey thing if you don't. My mom did it this way, and it served her very well. And people react differently. So, and that's basically like the third part is just like, all right, let's assess what you're eating. We need to get you to the point where you're just meat, you're just water. Eating something sweet every now and a great then, like once a year because you had a piece of cake at a birthday party, that needs to be the treat, not all the time. Like, somewhere in history, we started to treat the treats like everyday food, and then everyday food became the treats. It's like everyone's like, oh, we went out and had a steak this month, and I'm like, well, that's what you should be eating every night, not the cake or the candy every day. So yeah, I just tell people to start eliminating things in their diet, to the point they get to where there's no carbs, there's no starch, there's no sugars, there's no pop or caffeine, because I don't even do caffeine. I still haven't done caffeine to this point. I'm afraid if I had a caffeine anything right now, I don't know. I'd feel like lightning hit me or something. So
Yeah. Um, I like the point about when the treat becomes the norm, that's when you know you're in trouble.
yeah.
Just as soon as you said that, like the thing that popped into my head was Pop Tarts. It's like
Mhm.
as soon as we're having dessert for breakfast, we've
Yep.
got a problem.
Well, it's funny you say the word breakfast. This is a big point that I emphasize on people too. And I ask them, and I'm like, what's the most important meal of the day? They were like, breakfast. And I said, well, what's breakfast to you? And they'll come up with Pop Tarts, or they'll say something like oatmeal or cream of wheat, or they'll be like, oh, nice low fat, Greek yogurt or something. Like, okay. I'm like, and I'm like, every one of them misses the point. I think I've only had one person actually get this right. And I said, breakfast is not. Everyone thinks that breakfast is about a certain food. Everyone thinks cereal or thinks eggs and bacon or this, that, and the other. And I have to point out just the simplicity of it. I said, breakfast is just breaking fast, break fast. That's all it means. It just means that when you slept all night, or for however long, if you ate dinner at 6 o'clock the night before and you slept for 8 hours that night, and then you're finally eating, 8 o'clock the next morning, that 14 hours later, you're just breaking your 14-hour fast. That's all it means. It doesn't matter the food that you're eating. We need to, to stop getting hooked on this stigma of, oh, breakfast has to be a certain thing. No, that's not what it means. So
Yeah. Um, so Russell, do you have any way of reaching out if people want to get in contact? Do you have any social media or anything?
I just have a Facebook, and it's my Facebook's Russ Davis. If anyone wanted to send me messages and ask about it, um, anyone, and I've told everyone, and there's been a few that I've told about carnivore, and they've reached out to me. I'm over Messenger, over Facebook, and stuff like that. And I'm willing to help anyone out. Like, I want people to be healthy there with me. I want people to experience what I did. I want people to have more energy. I don't want people to be medicated on things and this, that, and the other. So yeah, but yeah, Facebook's about all I have, in Messenger. I, I've thought about starting my own little podcast like you have, or doing something along those lines, and maybe I should. I don't know yet.
No, no worries. I'll link to your Facebook in the show notes.
Okay.
Russell, thank you very much for coming back on and letting us know how things are going and sharing your experience. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. It's an absolute joy every time I get on with you, and I love putting the message out there for everyone.